Hello, hello. Thank you so much for purchasing the coaching workbook that will guide you through the entire business planning process for your new music business. Congratulations on starting a new music business. That is so exciting. I know how challenging it can be to start a business, especially if you haven't been trained on it. So that's what I'm here to do today. I'm going to walk you through this entire guide. And by the end of it, you will have a solid idea of how to start your business. So without further ado, let's get started. What you have here is the coaching workbook. This is the full course, the full workbook that we have to offer. So let's take a look. The very first thing that you should do when you're starting a new music business is ask yourself, why music? And this is something that I borrow from my friend Ari Herstand, who opens his book, How to Make It in the New Music Business, with this exact question: why music? He says in the book, because I need to, it's not good enough. That's not a real answer. You need something tangible. Why music? What parts of you does it satisfy? What dreams are you going to make come true through music? What gifts are you going to be giving the world through your music? Answering this question early in your career can really help you to solve those big problems when they come up. So if something falls outside of your comfort zone, this is where I want you to write that down. Don't overthink it, but I do want you to write for a good 15, 20 minutes. Second page is your core values. So core values are a concept that I got from a book called Traction by Gino Wickman. And what I really like about this is that they are deep-seated, intrinsic, motivating factors for all the decisions that you're making in your life. And that goes beyond work. This is the stuff that really deeply matters to you as a person. And if it matters that deeply to you, it's going to matter to all your fans as well. You don't necessarily know what your values are until they're being violated. So you want to establish them early in your career, and you want to put them in writing before you start hiring people. Because if you hire somebody and they violate those values, then you're going to have a hard time. So the way that you fill out this worksheet is by looking at it quickly and going with your gut reaction and choosing 10 to 15 values that you think define you. Give them a circle, just real quick, write down the ones that come to mind, and then sleep on it. Take a night and sleep on it. And then the next morning, I want you to try to define them. So if you ended up with 15, I want you to give yourself a sentence to answer, why is this important to me? So let's say that you picked confidence. Why is confidence in your music career, why is that important to you? If you can't come up with an answer of why exactly you picked that, then explore whether it's really a value or not. I gave you some extra lines in case you come up with other ones, which pretty much every single person that ever does this comes up with their own. So feel free to go crazy with it, but you want to end up with like 3 to 7. And you want to use them as benchmarks for the projects that you take, the people that you hire, and everything that you do going forward. So make sure that they're really true to you, okay? So here's where you can write your explanation sentences. And I give you an example, one of mine, optimism. We see good in situations, we see potential in people, we see positive energy as a tangible thing that we can give and receive. And we strive to show our clients the best. Okay, next is your mission statement. This also comes from the Traction book. And the mission statement it's 2 parts. It is what you're naturally extremely good at and what you're passionate about, blended together, okay? So for me, I am naturally good at helping people with their businesses, but I'm passionate about music. So I discovered this by writing down what my skill sets were. I wrote marketing, I wrote bookkeeping, I wrote business growth, coaching, therapy, giving people help, And then I blended the two together. So this top one example is my personal example. We help businesses grow. So that first one should be kind of vague. It really doesn't need to identify exactly what industry that you're in, because you could conceivably change industries and still have this natural skill set, right? So for some people, it might be playing guitar. If you are extremely good at playing guitar, you could do that as a teacher. You could do it as a performer. You could do it as a producer. So there's lots of different ways for you to achieve your goals inside of your natural skill set and inside of your passion. And we'll get into that a little bit more later. But then the second thing you want to identify is your niche, and that is your passion. That is the area of the industry that you just love. Do you love performing on stage? Do you love storytelling? Do you love podcasting? Do you love creating songs, even if you're not the one who's going to be singing them or performing them? So this is where you have the opportunity to identify what you're naturally good at and what you're super passionate about, and you blend it together into your mission statement. So mine is, we help businesses grow by providing financial education, business resources, and networking opportunities. The third part of it is goal setting. Goal setting is absolutely essential to creating a business plan. This whole business plan hinges upon how you want to retire or close your music business. I know it sounds a little morbid to think about how you want to close your music business, but there are different paths that we can take depending on different goals. So if you want to be in the biggest band in the world, then you're going to have a different path than if you want to be a music teacher at a middle school. So I need you to think about your goals in terms of visualizing your life in the next 10, 15, 25 years. So go ahead and answer all these questions for yourself. This might take you about a half hour to really dig into. There's also a guided meditation video further down in this container that can help you really hone in on this vision. But go ahead and write for a little while and tap into that vision of who you want to be. Next, I want you to write 10 dreams that you want to achieve in the next 10 years. So you just painted yourself a picture of what your career is going to look like and what your life is going to look like. So write 10 dreams and indicate them in present tense as if they've already happened. I am debt-free. I am writing songs with Lady Gaga. I've published a coffee table book of my photos. And then next, we're going to choose one dream to focus on right now that's going to get you closer to the vision that you painted in the first step of this goal setting module. And then we're going to set some SMART goals to achieve that dream. So for example, if your vision is that you are a business owner and you have a studio, a really successful studio, but you want to be debt-free before you get there, what can you do right now that is specific and measurable and attainable in order to get debt-free so that you can buy the studio gear that you need so that you can be the biggest producer in the world? When we set the goals first, it gives us a roadmap of how to get there. And that's what we're achieving with the last 3 sheets that we just went through. Okay, so once we have painted the vision, we have narrowed down our focus and our mission statement, and we have set some goals for ourselves. The next thing that we can do is actually start to establish the structure of the company. And a lot of times that starts with naming the business. If you aren't quite ready to name the business, that's okay. You can come back to this sheet, just screech it out of order. But if you are ready, then this is a great time to name it. And I want you to think about your values. I want you to think about your mission statement while you're naming the company. So what's this business called? Brainstorm some ideas here and circle or highlight the ones that really stand out to you. And then Google this phrase, my state. So for me, it would be Michigan Business Name Directory is what I'd be searching for. And that would take me to a website that allows me to search for my own name and see if anything comes up. If nothing comes up, it's available. And that means you can go ahead with naming your company that. But like if you're searching for the word McDonald's or the word Carhartt, you aren't going to be able to name your company that because it's already taken. So check and make sure that your name is available on your state's business directory. And then do the same thing for your website. My husband likes me to use Namecheap. You can also use GoDaddy. If your business's name.com is taken, do a little bit of research about why. Is it in a different state? Is it in a different country? Figure out if you will be violating their trademark if you were to take that same website and do something different like .co or .us. You got to do a little bit of research here if it's already taken. It doesn't necessarily mean that it's unavailable because naming happens on the state level and it varies by industry. If you have questions about this, feel free to email me. Okay, so now that we have a name, we can start branding the business. So you want to choose 3 fonts to represent your business, and one of them has serifs. So serifs are the little notches on the top and bottom of the letters. I don't have any of them here on this page, but like Times New Roman is a serif font. That makes it easier on the eye when you're reading long blocks of text because the letters flow into each other. So you want to choose one font with serifs, one without serifs, like this font right here, branding the business, does not have serifs on it. And then you want to use one script or cursive or custom font that just makes it a little bit unique, because if everything's really blocky, unless that's what you're going for, if everything's really blocky, then it can be a little boring on the eye. Next, you want to design your logo. So I give you a little box so you can draw in there if you want. If you already have a logo, then you can just, blow past these pages, no big deal. Next, you want to choose 2 or 3 bright colors to represent the vision and the mission and the goals of your company. I chose green and yellow because those are colors of money in my mind. Paper money and coin money are green and yellow, gold, right? So those are my 2 bright colors. And then my neutrals are gray, blue, and white. Okay, and now we start to get into building the actual structure of the company in the eyes of the IRS and legality, like having an LLC and stuff like that. So the very first question you need to ask yourself is, what is my business tax structure? So there are 5 different tax structures that you could choose from. You could be a sole proprietor, which is a single member LLC. You could be a partnership, which is a multi-member LLC. You could start an S corporation, a C corporation, or a nonprofit organization. For more information on that, you'll want to check out one of our business tax structure workshops, because that's way more information than I can go into right now. Okay, next, do you need an LLC? If you are hiring people, if you're signing contracts, if you are going to be operating out in the real world, you want to have an LLC to protect your assets. So how do you get an LLC? You can use a CPA, you can use an attorney, you can use a website like LegalZoom or Rocket Lawyer. But you want to make sure at the end of it, you end up with articles of organization, an operating agreement, and you need to choose a registered agent. And that registered agent is going to be the person that receives all your mail, signs all your documents, and acts on behalf of the company. If that's not you for some reason, like it's a CPA or it's an attorney, then you need to make sure that you have a solid line of communication with them and that they're acting on your behalf. The registered agent information is public on the state website. So if you are, for example, if you are a manager and you are registering this LLC on behalf of your artist, if they are the registered agent, their address is going to be public. So that's something to keep in mind when you're doing the registered agent stuff. If this feels complicated to you, it's worth it to talk to a CPA or an attorney. Okay, do you need an employer identification number? So an employer identification number is used to identify a business that operates separately from the owner's social security number. When you have a business, you need an identification number for that business. And that can either be an EIN or a social security number. If you're not comfortable giving your social security number to venue owners or putting it on websites, then you want an EIN. They are free. You can go to irs.gov and apply. Make sure you write your EIN down, put it on your W-9. You will be using it very frequently. Memorize it if that's your style, save it in your Google Drive. You don't want to lose your EIN. Do you have original material to copyright? So this original material, there's this thing called a poor man's copyright where people think that if they mail it to themselves, then that's securing it. That is a myth. If you are creating original songs, original art, it has to be copyrighted with the US Copyright Office. So you should go to the US Copyright Office website, register, and then secure all of your works, your written lyrics, your audio recordings, sheet music or charts if you have it, and you have to divvy up ownership percentages if it's not 100% to you. Okay, moving into publishing and distribution. So this is an area that I only briefly touch upon because it is covered ad nauseum from other websites like CD Baby, Songtrust, TuneCore, DistroKid. I couldn't begin to cover this topic as well as they do. So I strongly encourage you to do your research about how you want to publish and distribute your music. But from a business management standpoint, these are the things that you have to pay attention to. What software service will you use for digital distribution? Are you creating physical copies? Will you create printable sheet music? Will you distribute digital copies of your lyrics? Is your music going to be made available on social media sites like TikTok, Instagram, whatever else exists at the time that you're viewing this video? Are you registered with sync licensing houses? And are all these digital distributors paying out to the proper bank account? And we're going to talk about banking in just a minute, but that one is really important because if you have money sitting somewhere and it goes to the wrong bank account, it is going to bounce around and it's going to cause a headache for you. You don't want to mess around with that. So next you need to think about what contracts you need to do your business. So if you're going to be working with other musicians, you either want work for hire contracts or split sheet contracts. You want a producer agreement. If you're going to be touring, you want a stage plot, input list, tech rider. You want to have a band agreement if you're in a band. If you are searching for management or an agent, you want to have a contract with them. If you want to work with a publicist, you should have a contract with them. And if this all sounds super complicated, then you're going to want to talk to an attorney. But there's a lot of information available about all of this stuff on other websites. Again, this is an area where other people have written about it so well that I wouldn't want to reinvent the wheel here. From a business management standpoint, though, you want to check and make sure that you have all this stuff. Okay, and then insurance. What insurances do you need? So if you rent or if you own a home, you want to protect your stuff at home. You really, really, really want renter's insurance or homeowner's insurance. It's required if you have a mortgage, but you really want renter's insurance if you don't already have it. And then you need to look into gear insurance and your car insurance. And you have to see if your car insurance covers your gear, if your car was parked while the stuff was stolen. And there's all these different stipulations about when things get covered and when they don't. So do a little bit of extra research and ask different scenarios. If my car is parked and it's locked, is my gear going to be covered if it's stolen? If you are an agent or if you are in any way handling the money that belongs to somebody else, you want to look into liability insurance, general business liability insurance, and something called errors and omissions insurance. So both of those will protect you if you make a mistake with someone else's money. And then you need to look into providing health insurance, life insurance, short-term and long-term disability, and workers' comp insurance for people who work for you. Depending on how your company is organized, that might be required. Most of the time it is not required for contractors, but it might be, depending on if the work is dangerous or not. So again, this is something that you want to talk to an attorney about if you're unclear. Website and email registration. This is probably something that you've already thought about, maybe you've already done. There are a lot of different companies that will host your website, like Bandzoogle, Squarespace, Wix. You could do a WordPress site. You don't necessarily have to hire somebody to do your web design for you. You could do it yourself, but you want to look into the cost. When does it expire? Have I secured the name? Do I have to secure the name separately from the software company that actually designs the site? And just make sure that you're organized with all of that so that when you bring on a team, that's something that you can easily delegate out. And then, is your email address directing into the proper inbox? You want to check if you are selling merch through your website. You want to make sure that your payment processing system is secure. If somebody goes to log into your website and it says not secure, when they type in their credit card information, they might get an alert from their browser that says, caution, this is not secure, don't put your credit card in here. And that's going to turn people away from spending money on you. So if that's coming up for you, if it says not secure when you log into your website, that's something that you're going to want to talk to a web developer about. Once we know that everything's set up on the back end, then we can start making money. And isn't that what we all want, right? We all want that cash to be flowing in. We want it to be seamless. We want to open our bank accounts and see that we made $1 million overnight, right? But in order for that to happen, we have to have first done all of this other stuff. And then we have to have a bank account. So first question you need to ask yourself, is it going to be a business checking account or is it going to be a personal checking account? Technically, either one is fine. In the eyes of the IRS, all they really want is for them to be separate, okay? But with that being said, if you have a business checking account, you're going to have more functionality on the business end. You're going to be able to accept payments with credit cards. You're going to be able to invoice people and issue 1099s, and you're just going to it's going to be a little bit more cohesive as a business entity. But you can totally open a personal checking account and use that as your separate checking account for your business. If you choose a business account, you need to have an EIN. So remember a couple pages ago, we talked about, do you need an EIN or not? Are you going to use your social security number? If you want a business checking account, you have to have an EIN, okay? If you want a personal checking account, you can just use your social security number. So then you need to ask yourself, which kind of bank will you use? Are you going to go with a big national bank that has lots of different branches where you might be able to go to your bank if you're on tour? Or do you want to choose a local credit union that might give you better savings rates, better rates on a loan if you need a loan, and you might, actually know the people that work there. But then if you're on tour and something goes wrong, you might not be able to get into a branch. I don't know if that's still relevant for most people, but it's something that you want to consider. Are you going to need a credit card or a line of credit attached to your business account? That is something that you're going to have to talk about with your team, with the other people in your band. Are you going to borrow money? If you're going to borrow money, it's something you want to think about before you get your bank account, because borrowing directly from your bank makes everything easier, but some people don't like it. Some people want their bank and their borrow to be separate. Okay, so some people want to stay unbanked. And that basically means that you would be accepting everything via cash or a cash app. So if that sounds like you, then you need to think about how people are going to pay you. If a venue wants to send you a deposit, where are they going to send it? If you're dealing in cryptocurrency, what kind of wallets are you going to use? These are all things you want to think about ahead of when somebody's trying to pay you. If somebody's trying to pay you and you don't already have a way to accept the money, then you're going to come upon a headache and you don't necessarily want to deal with that. So then you want to choose a payment processor for the way that you're going to take money in if you're selling things. And that includes merch, copies of CDs, if people are paying you for gigs, anything like that. How are you going to take the money? There's a common misconception that Venmo, PayPal, and cash are not taxable as income. That is a lie. Venmo, PayPal, and cash are taxable if that's how you're taking income into your business. And in the event of getting audited, the auditor is going to check your Venmo account and your PayPal account, and they're going to check it against your calendar. And they're going to say, hey, I see that you played a gig on February 15th. How did you get paid for that? And if you're like, because you know it was cash and you didn't claim it, they're going to see right through you. All of your income from your business is taxable, whether you like it or not. So the best thing that you can do is find a process that works for you and is easy for you to keep track of. So you want to look at what are the processor's fees, how long does it take to transfer the money to my bank account, and does it connect to bookkeeping software? If your goal is to become a big musician where you're making a lot of money all the time, then you're going to be depositing and withdrawing money fairly regularly. You're selling merch every day and playing a lot of gigs. It will eventually be easier to use bookkeeping software than it is to do it by hand. So you want to pick payment processors right from the beginning that play nice with bookkeeping software. So that's something to keep in mind as you decide how you're going to take your money in. Does it talk to the bookkeeping software that you eventually want to use? Okay, so when it comes to tracking your expenses and keeping track of your contractor payments, there's a couple things you need to keep in mind. Are you hiring employees or are you hiring contractors? Employees are paid through payroll. And if you need payroll, you're going to want to use a service for that, either a CPA, a bookkeeper, or a service like ADP, Paychecks, Gusto, QuickBooks. There's lots of different options, but if you're putting somebody on traditional payroll, you're going to definitely want some kind of service to help you with that. If you're paying contractors, usually that's something that most people can handle doing themselves. You're just sending them money through PayPal or Venmo, or you're writing them a check. And then how are you going to keep track of who you paid? You can use a spreadsheet. You can use a service like QuickBooks. There's a lot of different options. This is something that we talk about in the Musicians Money Collective on a regular basis. So if this is something that you need a lot of help with, feel free to reach out. We can help you. And then do you have proper documentation for your contractors? So when somebody works for you, you need to authorize that they have a social security number or an EIN, that they are properly registered to work in the United States. And we do that through Form W-9. So when you start working with somebody, you're going to want them to give you a W-9. And that's if they're a contractor. That W-9 says, everything you're doing for me is taxable. And I'm going to give you a 1099 at the end of the year. Make sure you get that documentation from all the people that you work with ahead of time so that they understand that the work that you're doing is taxable. And then on your end, you're going to want to have a budget for how much is coming in and how much is going out so that you don't accidentally end up owing one of your contractors more money than you've made that month. You can do this in a spreadsheet, or there's budgeting software like Mint. You need a budget. Some bank accounts have budgeting software built in, which is really nice. And then lastly, do you need a sales tax license? Sales tax can get super complicated because it's state by state and every state has different rules. I try not to dive too deep into sales tax in a group setting like this because it's completely different for each individual person. So I want you to check if you need a sales tax license in your state to sell original merchandise. Is that something that applies to you? Doesn't matter. Do a little bit of research. You can even type the phrase, do I need a sales tax license, and your state's name, and then follow the instructions on there. Again, hit me up if you have questions. This is something we talk about in the MMC all the time. So we are having these kinds of conversations. It's just usually on a one-on-one basis. Okay, and then I dropped a very simple budget right here that you can use if you don't have any clue about how to start a budget. This is a great sample for your very first budget. So at this point in our business planning process, just to recap, we have established our values. We know what we're good at. We know what our goals are. We have set up our business. We are prepared to receive money, and that money is protected by an LLC and insurance and the proper banking systems. And we're ready to go. We're ready to start making money. We are going to start doing marketing. We're going to start telling our story and bringing in those 1,000 true fans, that super fan group that really deeply loves us. And this is where it starts to get really exciting. So the first thing I want you to know as we dive into this section is your uniqueness is your gift. The thing that makes you unique, that's magic right there. That is your absolute magic. And we have to identify that in order for you to find the other people in the world that have something similar and relate to it. As you start to tell this story, you really want to focus on the things that you've been through that set you apart from other musicians, other songwriters, producers, managers, agents, whatever it is that you're doing in the industry. You've lived a different life than the other people that are doing the same job that you're doing. So what makes you special? You have the opportunity to craft your own story, and that is magic right there. So tell your story in a way that resonates with your core fan base. I gave you some journal entries here to help you dive into the different parts of your personality that set you apart from other people. So go ahead and dive into this. This might take a little while, but it's totally worth it, because what you come out with at the end is a whole bunch of social media posts or blog posts or stories that you can tell on stage that make you seem unique to your fan base. And then you want to use this information to establish a super fan avatar. So what is a super fan avatar? Your super fans are the people that just absolutely love you. They just love everything that you do. They buy all the things that you put out. They're the promoters for you. So they are out there, they're bringing in new fans. They are talking about you all the time. They're sharing your posts. They just love everything that you're doing. These are the people who, in essence, will work for you for free in those first couple years to spread the word on your music. 80% of your core fan base is going to come from these super fans. So I gave you some prompts on how you can utilize this fan base to spread the word about your music and your art and create a really tight network of other super fans. Go ahead and answer all these questions about your ideal fan. And give yourself some grace, because you're not defining every single person that would ever come to a concert of yours. You are talking about the people who would come to your family picnic, for example. Lastly, we are going to do a marketing content brainstorm. So I gave you a few ideas to start that I think are interesting as a music fan, but you really could talk about anything you want, anything that we've talked about anywhere in this document so far. You want to sort by theme. So you can have songwriting ideas, instrument ideas, theory ideas, gear reviews. You can have some non-music ideas. You could brainstorm by medium, specific ideas that only work as written blogs, specific ideas that only work as videos, so on and so forth. And once you have a big solid content reservoir, that's when you can really start to do the heavy marketing. And you know that once you start telling these stories and getting this marketing out into the world, people are going to start buying what you're selling. They're going to start putting money in your checking account. They're going to show up for your pre-sales. They're going to become Patreon members. They're going to donate to your Kickstarter. They're going to come to your concert or your festival. That's the whole point of this entire document, is to get those super fans to start coming and hanging out with you. So as a bonus, I included some tax stuff in here that I think will help you. So I have the tax expense and deduction checklist, which is a list from the IRS that is basically everything that's deductible. And it fills 2 pages. That's how hefty it is. And then I also have a what you need to file your taxes list so that you remember everything when you actually sit down and do your tax return. Lastly, I have a resource list for the books that I use to create this workbook. So please, if you have any questions, feel free to email me, sgb@stuffbelcher.com. Thank you so much for purchasing the workbook. I really hope this is helpful for you. I would love to hear back from you about your favorite parts. If you want to send me a video testimonial, that would be amazing. Thank you so much. Take care.